Hello, my name's Devaraj and welcome back to this series on bioenergetics. Today I wanted to look at, to go back one little step. I've had this channel running about bioenergetics for about a year, a little bit over a year now, and I'm quite chuffed that there's like 600 odd people subscribed to it. And I always read the little bits of feedback or questions that people put in, and something I notice is that a lot of it is about essentially I'm doing bioenergetics or emotional expression and weird stuff starts happening in my body, and is it okay? You know, it's very, I totally understand. You know, if something a bit funny starts happening in your body, you start to think, bloody hell, is there something wrong with me? Do I need to go to a doctor? Do I need to get some kind of scan? Or actually, am I okay? And it's a natural release happening. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about some of the different kind of sensations you can get when you're doing this kind of quite intense body-based process work. But first, I say as a general rule, you know, if you're really worried about something, it's okay to go and get it checked out with a doctor. The troubles you're probably going to find is that most doctors are trained in, you know, a very reductionist approach to human health. And when you're working with bioenergetics, you're really working a lot with the whole body as a big system. And so it's not always easy for them to understand what's going on. I myself go to doctors to get an opinion from a doctor, but I don't necessarily treat it like some kind of gospel or something like that. And I think generally in life, if you go around treating the average doctor as some kind of God figure who really knows what's going on, you're probably going to get pretty ill and die fairly young. Maybe it's a bit cynical, but that would be my opinion. So I think if you're really worried, it can be good to go to a doctor for reassurance, as long as you get reassurance, or, you know, if there really is something seriously that could be going on in your body. But generally, I would say pretty much everyone who's written into me, or the people I've worked with over the years, when they get weird stuff happening in their body, you're basically okay. It's something that's happening because of the exercise, and it's some form of release going on, or something shifting out of the muscle system, because bioenergetics works with the muscles, and the muscles hold a lot of tension. You know, I estimate that like the average human being in the West is probably suppressing 90 to 95% of their emotions. And where they're being pushed down from the mind, we're pushing them back into the body, into the muscles. So if you imagine that, you know, if you start to take the lid off, of course, some weird shit can start to happen. It's a little bit unpredictable. The kind of things that are very, very common is, for a start, like a shaking sensation, like a spontaneous, you know, not something you're directed by trying to shake your body, but your body is starting to shake naturally. Maybe doing the bow and arch, maybe doing a lying down exercise, maybe doing something else. I would say 90% of the time, 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, this is good and fine. Spontaneous shaking is something you will see in animals when they're a bit scared, for a start. They may start to just spontaneously shake, spontaneously move and vibrate. It's a classic way of releasing fear from the body. Fear is essentially a frozen mindset. It's one way of looking at it. It's frozen around an emotion or a feeling that you don't want to feel, don't want to express. And when that fear starts to move, the feeling may come, or it may just feel scary. So if you find your body starting to shake and you're getting a bit scared, don't feed the fear. In the sense that, don't say, oh my God, what's happening? It's quite natural for some shaking to occur. And actually it's good. Actually, people often try for years to get shaking and they don't necessarily get it. And in the next of this series, or the one after that, I'll be looking how to try and induce some spontaneous shaking. How to try and put your body in postures so you get this. It's basically, as I see it, an automatic release from the body. It's a kind of automatic release. When the muscles just start to vibrate in a certain harmonious way and your body just wants to let go. And you can allow it to happen. If you can allow it to happen, it's good. That's shaking. What else have we got here from people? Okay, feelings of heat is another one. And generally I'd say, again, pretty positive. This is good. Heat is often accompanied when the muscles start to release, when the holding patterns start to move. It's very common to get a feeling of heat in your body. People often report it when they're doing these walk around exercises, you know, but with you lifting your heels up and down or twisting your legs in and out, feeling heat in the muscles is quite common. And, you know, for me, that's totally cool, basically. Next up, let's have a look a bit at yeah, someone wrote to me recently about okay, I'm doing a bit of emotional expression, screaming into a pillow, and suddenly it's like I'm pulled into a different place. I don't really know who I am anymore. It's like I've almost blacked out, but actually there's just a big vibrating feeling inside. Like it's just the whole of my awareness has been occupied by this kind of vibrating sensation. And am I going mad? Is there something neurologically wrong with me? I would say this is also fine and good, you know. Might sound a bit strange, but for me it's basically fine. It was very common for me when I was doing a lot of therapy and quite intense meditative process a few years ago. But sometimes it would I'd wake up in the morning actually, well I wasn't even doing any kind of exercise, and it would be like suddenly my awareness is pulled into this little room where everything is vibration. There's not even a sense of it happening to someone anymore. It's just my whole awareness is in this kind of vibration or this feeling inside. And that's a release. That's a deep release from somewhere that's taken over your whole being. For me, it's totally fine. And then we've got stuff where it could be pulsing or spasming. With spasming in particular, you know, some part of your body just starts to kind of freak out a bit, and it worries you. You know, you turning into some kind of you know, some guy out of the Middle Ages or something like that, out of one of those old movies. And you know, it can also be things like, you know, spontaneous burping. You know, I get a lot of that anyway. You know, I still do. Spontaneous kind of, it's like a gut release there. You know, spontaneous kind of feelings or twitching in the face, you know. For me, all of this stuff is fine. If it's accompanied by pain, you know, like physical pain, then maybe you need to look at it a little bit more and just make sure that you're not doing something too extreme to yourself. You know, that you're also really breathing and feeling and taking things at a pace which is okay. But if it's not accompanied by pain, you just need to get over the social stigma of it, you know. I don't like to go out and burp a whole load. My girlfriend's on the receiving end sometimes, or feeling like, you know, oh God, you're burping again or whatever. And what's that about? Actually, it's the throat releasing. And like we said, people are suppressing their feelings a lot. The main area where it gets suppressed is here, between the mind and the body, the neck and the throat. So burping is good, you know. In fact, if we'll be looking at the belly again as well. This is another one I'm going to do soon. But, you know, actually allowing yourself to burp, to do like gag reflexes, this is basically good. It's basically good. You just have to be careful if you are from a background of like certain types of eating disorder, that it doesn't trigger something that you're not ready to deal with yet. If you go into vomiting, not so much that you have to vomit, but just to get your throat to spasm is incredibly healthy, and it's also quite a taboo in the West. It's crazy. Some other cultures, you're totally allowed to just gag away, you know. It's very, very healthy for you generally, and it can bring a lot up, so don't overdo it straight away. Otherwise, spasming or intense pain, then it's a bit of a no-no, you know, in the sense that if you start to get an intense shooting pain somewhere, you know, pretty much anyone is going to stop anyway, you know, unless you're seriously crazy, you know, I mean, you're just going to stop, basically. So, yeah, I didn't mean to say it like seriously crazy, sorry. It's more like our natural defenses will come in and say, whoa, something's really wrong here, I'm overdoing it. So, you know, generally, there's not much that can happen that I've seen in bioenergetics that's really worrying. What's the main thing where I see people going a little bit off is they overdo it and they don't stay enough quite in the body. And then you can pull your lower back and end up with an ache for a little while, or pull another muscle. And it's good to, you know, try not to just totally dismiss the process because of that and think, oh God, I'm never doing that again. But just to wait till the muscle's better, give it the stretching, the gentle stretching it needs, and then return to the exercises, but taking it easy. It's really normal when you start to do, especially the bow and arch, that sometimes you pull your lower back a bit and it gets a bit achy on the left or the right side or both. And you just need to take it a bit easier and put the maximum awareness on your body. The more you feel your body, the harder it is for a muscle to get pulled, because you won't take the stretch so deep, you know, because you're feeling it all the way. And there's one last topic which relates a bit to the shaking in particular, and that is the topic of Kundalini energy. People are asking me about, you know, my body started to shake. Am I having a Kundalini Awakening? And yeah, there's a famous book. This guy, he called himself Arthur Avalon or something, The Serpent Power, and that, I think he was an old colonel from Britain or something like that. Someone can correct me. And he wrote this book, The Serpent Power, about Kundalini, based around his time, because the British used to occupy India. And so they got exposed to the spiritual theories from Hinduism and the Vedas and this kind of stuff. And there's all sorts of theories about Kundalini and the chakras and a Kundalini Awakening and this kind of thing. What I would say with this stuff is I would look more to the bodily sensations, because there is some kind of awakening process. I myself, about 25 years ago in Thailand, had some quite powerful Kundalini experience, like an explosion in my head. And I didn't even know what the bloody hell it was until I started to do some groups about meditation. I got interested in meditation about 5 years later, and someone explained to me a little bit what it was, or they read out something, and I thought, bloody hell, that happened to me. I put it out of my mind. But what I also see with this whole Kundalini thing is it's easy to go on a big ego trip with it. It doesn't really support you, you know. People go into this kind of spiritual Glastonbury world that they're now some kind of enlightened being because they've had some kind of energetic effect in their body, or some kind of like semi-explosion in their mind or something like that. And it doesn't really serve them, you know. For me, it took a long time for me even to become aware I'd had some kind of strange Kundalini experience. And then when I did become aware of it, it was clear for me I needed to do more therapy. I was a mess socially, an absolute fucking mess. So, you know, the Kundalini thing is like, it's a little bit for me on the edge somewhere. You've got to see if it's serving you, you know, that you're not building up a big image about yourself, and that you're working on your stuff, you know, because we've all got a lot of stuff. And generally, when this shaking, spontaneous shaking starts, yes, it can be some kind of Kundalini effect. You know, for me, it's fine to call it that. And you could also look at it as just like a bodily release, a deep, spontaneous bodily release. Because like I say, we're holding so much down. But when the muscles just get a chance to let go, they're like, yippee-yay, finally after 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, I can free. And the muscles are just releasing, you know, and they just want to go for it. So we're going to look at the next one in the series about how to induce these kind of spontaneous releasing, or how to try and get it to happen, because you can't really force it. And so I would say with Kundalini, yeah, treat the whole subject with a little bit of care, that you don't get too wrapped up in it all, or on some huge spiritual mind trip that probably won't serve you. And at the same time, yeah, these things do happen. People do have awakening experiences where it seems like their consciousness shifts a bit to another level, or they just become a lot more self-aware very quickly. I mean, I was very repressed when I was younger, and then in my early 30s, I'm in my mid 50s now, I did have some kind of Kundalini experience in Thailand. I couldn't sleep for about a month before it, like a half hour a night, and I was boozing all the time to try and make myself sleep. And then I had this huge experience. I'd actually had a huge puff of some joint as well, which probably helped things along. And then I had this literally like a fireball with my eyes closed coming into the middle of my brain and just going kaboom, and my whole sort of body lighting up from the inside. But looking back, you know, it sounds very spectacular, like firework night and all very good. I was also extremely repressed. I mean, like really, really fucking repressed, totally, you know, from trauma of childhood. And so it kind of happened in a big, you know, explosion. So I think ideally it happens more smoothly and calmly, so that your body can just process and your mind can just process what's going on with Kundalini. That's why I think bioenergetics is good. So someone asked me, you know, can it create a Kundalini experience? I would say yes, but you know, ideally it's a nice smooth experience where it happens bit by bit, and you're not thrown into some altered state where you put yourself at risk of being, you know, finding yourself with the mental health services and this kind of thing. And I think doing these exercises helps with that. It helps with the integration. So that's my take on Kundalini. This has been quite a long chat about all these kind of things. Do feel free to keep writing in, and do feel free to check in with medical authorities if you're really worried. But for me, having worked in this field for about 8-10 years and been in it for about 15-20, I don't think there's much that can really go wrong, you know. If you're just sensible and use common sense. Okay, I'll be back with some more practical bioenergetic stuff very shortly, in a few days' time, hopefully. And see you later.